In the last stream, we were working on increasing our fissile fuel production, increasing the size of our fission reactor to increase the amount of nuclear waste that we were making so that we could increase the speed at which we were crafting these polonium pellets, so that today we can work on getting antimatter pellets via the use of the supercritical phase shifter. Now, between streams, I've gone ahead and left this system running until we got over 228 polonium pellets. Now that we have over 228 polonium pellets, we should be able to take basically all of those with at least 72 plutonium pellets and at least 228 of our HDPE sheets over here. And we should, in theory, now have everything it takes to craft the 60 SPS casing required for the actual multi-block, as well as the extra 12 SPS casing required to make the 3 SPS ports that we're going to need to also set up the SPS multi-block. We did go through the effort of teaching our system how to make black iron in the last episode, and so we can go ahead and fairly quickly here request a ton of black iron. I didn't think that doing more than 64 would do anything, so we'll do 60, 120, 180, and let's say 240. That should come in fairly quickly. We did increase the speed of this metallurgic infuser, but of course we can also go ahead and make that just a little bit faster so that we get that in a very short period of time, and we are also going to have to run all of that through the induction smelter as well. I don't believe that we taught our system how to make the actual black HDPE with the induction smelter, my reasoning being that we actually don't need more than 228 of this. I think this is the last time that we actually need black HDPE sheets, and so we can just go ahead and very quickly do this manually, at which point we should have everything that we need in order to craft the required 72 SPS casing. And there we go. Once we have all of that black HDPE, can we craft ourselves 72 SPS casing? That is going to get us 57. That is my bad. It's not 228, it's 288 that we need. We need 288 polonium, not 228. So let's reactivate that real quick. And the plutonium we do have, that's correct. We only need 72 there. We do also need more HDPE as well, though, because again, we only had about 250 of that, although to be fair, we did actually do some HDPE in the last stream, and so this 50 should get us more than enough, actually. So it should just be approximately 60 more polonium pellets. This should be fine. I did kind of babysit this reactor a little bit between streams, but it didn't have any problems. It did a perfectly fine job at dispersing all of the spent nuclear waste, so I don't really have any concerns over a meltdown. I think everything should just work. I did figure out one problem that we were having in the last stream, and that problem was power. So we noticed in the last stream that this flux point was only providing 104,000 redstone flux per tick to this setup, and that wasn't enough to power all of these machines. And I was a little confused because the elite cable here can move over 400,000 redstone flux per tick. But the problem wasn't the flux point. I did put another flux point down thinking it would solve the problem, but then I realized that the problem is the buffer. Over here we have this ultimate energy cube. The ultimate energy cube is only able to output a maximum of 102,000 redstone flux per tick per side of the energy cube. And so previously we just had this one side with the flux plug outputting 102,000, and that was all that our base could use. Now I've gone ahead and added a second elite cable to another side of the energy cube, and so in theory we should now be able to pull a maximum of 205-ish thousand redstone flux per tick around our base, which for the time being is doing a perfectly good job. All of our machines are running as intended, but almost certainly, let me drop that back in there, but we are almost certainly going to want to maybe increase that further in the future. But if that does become the case, we can just go ahead and add potentially another 1, 2, maybe even 3 more of these elite universal cables. And if we ever get to the point where we need more than, 400,000, 500,000 redstone flux per tick, then we can potentially look at setting up an induction matrix from mechanism, but I don't foresee that being necessary. Between streams, I did also go ahead and fix a problem that we were having over here with our initial fissile fuel production. Not necessarily the fissile fuel itself, but the fissile fuel pellets. The crusher down here that's producing the fluorite dust wasn't connected up to the purification chamber, so we weren't actually getting fissile fuel pellets, which is why we weren't gaining EMC last time. Now we are gaining EMC, but we're once again running into the problem here where we're just not getting the elite circuits into this basin fast enough, and I think the reason for that is, once again, the fact that this retrieval module is just not good enough. It's a low retrieval module, so it's requesting maybe one of the elite control circuits at a time, which is just too slow. It takes a while for the system to make it and then send it all the way over here. It would be ideal if it would make all 16 at once, send all 16 over, and then as soon as it starts using them, it requests even more, and hopefully they get there before it uses them all up. And so I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll take out this low retrieval module. We will quickly upgrade that to a medium, and then we might as well go all the way up to a high, and then if we drop that back in, we should then be able to re-add the Mobius fuel, the fissile fuel pellets, the improved mechanical essence, and of course also the elite control circuit. And there we go. Those are now coming in a lot faster, hopefully fast enough that more elite control circuits are being made than are being used, and so hopefully this just keeps going and keeps making these as fast as is humanly possible. I did notice that over here, it looks like we could probably do with a factory upgrade potentially in this metallurgic infuser, because it looked like that was the limiting factor as to how fast it could make the reinforced alloys. But another bottleneck that we are running into is over here, one that I'd actually not noticed, but we did see in the last episode that we're not banking up on basic mechanical essence, and digging into that further, the thing that we're not making enough of is aluminum gears. We just don't have enough aluminum being made to keep up with the demand required for that basic mechanical essence. And so once again, it's just another situation where we could do with increasing the speed of a couple of these machines here and maybe upgrading this retrieval module to a higher tier to make sure that this pulverizer always has earth charges to make sure we're getting the maximum amount of aluminum dust for this energized smelter. So upgrade, 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 speed upgrades, energy upgrades, and energy upgrades. And then over here, let's just steal those earth charges, steal the low priority module, upgrade that, of course, as we've done many a time now, to medium, and then, of course, you guessed it, to high. And then that should hopefully be more than enough to keep up with the demand for aluminum, which I don't think is particularly high. We can increase this to maybe 32 on the stack limiter there, again, just to make sure that we always have earth charges available. We could probably definitely almost certainly do with adding an integral component to this pulverizer as well, but already we're starting to back up on aluminum, and at some point we probably will have to look at speeding up these machines over here so we start using that aluminum faster again, because we are going to need a ton of these basic mechanical essence to finish the peg. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, how are we doing over here? We've got 59, 60, look at that, perfect timing, 60 polonium pellets. I am going to press scram just to be safe, although in theory we should be able to keep going until this fills up with 2048 polonium, but let's go ahead and see if we can't craft up the remainder of the SPS casing here. So we have got 65, 66, 7, 8, 9, 70, 1, and 2. Perfect. So that should be all of the SPS casing that we need. We do need 123 structural glass. We've got 65, and I'm pretty sure our system knows how to make this. So let's request one stack to pull what we have out of the system, and then let's request another stack to get our system to work. While we wait for that to do its thing, can we craft 3 SPS ports? We totally can. I did preemptively make a couple of these ultimate control circuits to be ready for this occasion, and then the final piece here is the supercharged coil. The supercharged coil, you can put multiple of these in, but we're going to start with one for the time being. This is made with 3 more polonium pellets. That is my bad. Thankfully, these do come in fairly quickly now, and so it shouldn't take us too long at all to get 3 more polonium pellets. We do also need a laser, which is made with 2 energy tablets, 1 steel casing, 3 reinforced alloy, and a diamond. I think we have almost all of that, and if we don't, I'm pretty sure our system knows how to make the items that we don't have. It does indeed. Good stuff, good stuff. And so that should be basically everything. Now, the final problem that we're going to run into is where we're going to put the SPS multi-block, because initially I was kind of hoping to put it a little further away from this reactor. I was thinking maybe even in the middle of this platform, because it's a kind of cool looking multi-block. The trouble is moving the polonium over a long distance, or even moving the spent nuclear waste over a long distance, we could run a very long pressurized tube. That would work, but I don't think it would look particularly great. Although we could potentially just get rid of this crafting terminal and maybe run it up through the bottom. That could look kind of cool. Initially, I was thinking about using the quantum entangler porters. These guys right here. These are pretty cool blocks from Mechanism that kind of work like tesseracts if you've played with older versions of modded Minecraft. They allow you to move energy, items, fluids, and gases between one entangler porter and another. So you pump into one, and then you can extract out of the other, and they allow you to move, fluids, gases, energy, items over a very long distance very easily. The only problem is that Mechanism does not allow you to move radioactive gases through the quantum entangler porters. So polonium and spent nuclear waste, or even regular nuclear waste, or plutonium, any gas that is radioactive, is not going to be able to be moved through the quantum entangler porter. And so if we do want to move it, we are just going to have to run it via a long cable. My alternate plan, if we couldn't put it here, was going to be to kind of try and flatten down this dynamic tank. It's currently bigger than it needs to be, and we could, of course, make it wider and shorter, and then maybe try and cram the supercritical phase shifter above the dynamic tank. That would work, but I think it's going to look better if we have the supercritical phase shifter in the middle here, and I do still want to put a roof on this, by the way. I'm thinking of having a big dome on this center platform. We could do with getting the RF Tools builder out so we can actually put that dome in. But yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll take the laser, I'll take the structural glass here. We are still waiting for yet more glass to come in, which, oh no, our system doesn't know how to make structural glass. That is my bad. In that case, let me just request a stack or two of normal glass, and then we can manually craft that into structural glass because it's just regular glass and steel. That's fine. But I think what we'll do, once we have that structural glass, I'll probably break this, and then we will get rid of this guy, the PRC here. And I think what we'll do is we'll temporarily turn the front off for the solar neutron activator. Although, I guess what we need to do is we need to turn the front on, turn the reactor back on, ideally get this to bang on 1,000, and then turn it off, which is going to be near impossible to do. I was so close. I got it to 1 millibucket. I got 1,001. I could keep trying to get bang on 1,000, but instead what I think I will do is instead just get rid of this block here. We can probably move this pretty pipe. Do we have any lying around? We do indeed. Let's just kind of reroute that a little bit. If we just do something like this, it is a little awkward because there's already a pressurized tube there. That should be fine, especially because nothing is going to be coming out of this PRC. And so we'll just extract from this side of the solar neutron activator down all the way across. I'll try and make sure the pipe goes under the bridge and then up into the supercritical phase shifter. Speaking of which, do we have all of the glass? We do indeed. Let's get even more of the structural glass. And boom, there is our second stack. And so now we just need to actually construct this. Oh, of course, after we craft our laser here into a supercharged coil. Fantastic. So let me grab a little bit of cobblestone just so I can do a bit of building here. And I don't really want that. I want this. So if memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure the supercritical phase shifter is 5 blocks tall. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just thinking of how we could get it centralized in this room. I think I'll go 1 higher up there. So we'll do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That seems fine. Oh, actually, never mind. I think it might be a 7 by 7 by 7 now that I think about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go 1 more up like that. And then let's start it here. So we'll leave it like 1 block off the ground. Yeah, why not? And so I think the way this works is we have structural glass that's going to go 2 out in each direction like this. And then we're going to have our SPS casing going on each side like this. So we have 3 SPS casing at the end of our little plus. We then want not to have SPS casing here, where I just put it, get rid of that. We then want 1 more SPS casing kind of on the diagonal between these 2 points, like that. And then we want to do that on all 4 of the corners with the SPS casing filling in that center corner piece. Once you have that down, we then essentially want to do the same thing, but on all of the sides. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to have like 1, 2, 3, and then it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the same kind of plus pattern that we had in the middle before, like that. But then now we want our 3 SPS casing, again, to go on the edges, like this, all the way around. It's already down at the bottom, of course. And then again, we want to fill in that same corner piece here with SPS casing. And the idea here is to basically do this same thing on all of the sides. You'll see here that kind of connects and fills in that spot there. And so now if we were to do the same thing over here, where again we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make the little plus sign in the middle, we can then do 3 at the top, this time 3 at the left, and the 3 at the right and the bottom are already done. And then, of course, we can fill in the remaining spaces until we're left with just that little corner piece, and then we fill in the corner piece. And if we keep doing this on all 4 sides and also on the top, it should form a complete kind of pseudo-sphere that is essentially the supercritical phase shifter. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Nice. So that is the supercritical phase shifter multi-block. Let me get rid of this guy. And now if I right click on this, it opens up the supercritical phase shifter interface. Right now, not particularly useful, but there are things we can do here. So we can put an SPS port right on the bottom. I'm going to put it right here. That is where we're going to pump our polonium. And just like before, you can use the configurator. And if you shift right click onto here, you can change this to output or input. We're going to leave it as input for the time being. That should allow us to input our polonium. Then we need to put in at least 1 supercharged coil. The supercharged coil actually needs to go onto one of the SPS ports, but it goes inside. So it goes like this on the inside of the reactor. I think it does have to be central, although I could be wrong on that. And basically, if I'm not mistaken, each supercharged coil can provide up to 400 million redstone flux per tick to the supercritical phase shifter. Right now, we're producing somewhere between 1 and 2 million redstone flux per tick. But if you wanted to input more than 400 million redstone flux per tick into the supercritical phase shifter, you would need multiple of those supercharged coils. You can put really as many of them as you like in. We then need the output port, and for now, we'll put that right on the front. We'll put that right about here, and this port is going to be the one that actually outputs the antimatter. So we'll set it to output, and then this is going to produce the antimatter liquid, so this one right here, or the gas, I should say. We want to pump that into a chemical crystallizer and then pump the resultant antimatter pellets into a storage drawer. That is the idea. So real quick, let me grab a bunch of ultimate pressurized tubes. It doesn't necessarily have to be ultimate, but one of the benefits to using ultimate pressurized tube is that the tube does hold a lot of gas. As you've seen over here, our basic tube can hold 112,000 millibuckets. If we have a very long ultimate pressurized tube that goes from this solar neutron activator round into the supercritical phase shifter, that's going to give us a very large buffer of polonium, which is going to be radioactive. If we break it, it's going to be banned, but it basically allows us to kind of keep this running for a while, even if the supercritical phase shifter isn't using the polonium faster than we're making it. It's still going to be a problem eventually, if that is the case, which it might be, but it does give us a bit more of a buffer and a bit more forewarning if that's going to be the case. So real quick, I'm going to craft up a bunch of ultimate pressurized tubing, and we'll see if we can't get this polonium hooked up. All right, so about a stack of ultimate pressurized tube later, I think we're about good to go. So back over here, let's go ahead and set the right-hand side of the solar neutron activator to output. And let's go ahead and turn this guy back on. We should start to see polonium being made, and in theory, we should start to see polonium making its way over into the supercritical phase shifter, which it is. Fantastic. And then down here, we should be able to hold a ton of extra polonium in our new ultimate pressurized tube. And so now it should just be a case of us grabbing a flux point, which I am going to steal from here, simply due to the fact that this actually doesn't need to be here because we fixed the problem. The problem was our energy cube, not the actual cables themselves. So let's just go ahead and do something like that to rectify the problem in the meantime. And then over here, we can place a flux point down onto the SPS port like this, and boom, it's going to start producing antimatter. Now, this will use really as much power as we can give it. Again, up to, I believe, that 400 million redstone flux per tick mark. Of course, the reason why this is limited here is because it's not on Isaac power. If we set it to Isaac Power, there we go. Now it's going to pull the full 1.3 million because again, if we put it on Isaac Power, that means it comes straight from the turbine to the supercritical phase shifter. We do want the this to be the priority, which it is. This is at priority 1000, this is at priority negative 1000, and this is at priority 0. So currently, all of our power goes to this cube first, which is good because it means that everything else in our base is going to get power when it needs it. Then the power goes to the supercritical phase shifter, and then only if the supercritical phase shifter can't take any power does it go to the resistive heater and get deleted. But this looks like it's working. You'll see that it's still very slow. If we come over here, you'll see that right now it's producing antimatter at a rate of 0.003 millibuckets per tick. And you'll see this purple bar here is how long it takes to produce 1 millibucket of antimatter. For reference here, it takes 1,000 millibuckets of antimatter to make 1 antimatter pellet, and then these final stars here require quite a bit, 36912 antimatter per star, and if my calculations are correct, we need 36 of these stars in total, and so we would need 433 antimatter pellets, which is 433,000 millibuckets. The good news is that the creative chemical tank is going to come to our rescue here. The creative chemical tank only requires 6 antimatter pellets, and once we have the creative chemical tank, we can pump 1 millibucket of antimatter into it, and we will have an infinite amount of antimatter. So 6,000 millibuckets is the number that we're looking for. If we can get 6,000 millibuckets of antimatter, that is going to be enough for us to make the creative chemical tank, and that is going to be enough to get infinite antimatter that we can use to make all of the remaining 432 required to make all of the final stars to get the creative vending upgrade. At a rate of 0.003 millibuckets per tick, that is 0.06 millibuckets per second, which is about 17 seconds per millibucket of antimatter. And so if we multiply 6,000 by 17, that's 102,000 seconds, which equates to 1,700 minutes, which is 28 hours. So at our current rate, this is going to take 28 hours to produce 6,000 millibuckets of antimatter. That's quite a while. The base isn't chunk loaded currently. We could chunk load it. We could also potentially look at trying to make more power as well, which could be possible. For the time being, I think I'm going to leave it as is and let it slowly but surely back up, and we'll see how it's going while we work on some of the other requirements for the final star. If it looks like we're not going to get it in time though, then we can potentially look at either chunk loading this setup or looking at increasing power. The only problem with chunk loading is that if any one small part of the setup goes wrong, then the whole thing's going to melt down. Even now, if we look in here, you'll see that we are very slowly but very surely actually backing up on polonium. So we are making the polonium faster than we're able to turn it into antimatter, and so eventually this is going to back up and melt down. It's going to take a long time for that to happen because this should be able to hold a few 100,000 millibuckets of polonium, given how long it is and given that they are ultimate tubes. Again, this one over here is a basic tube. It can hold 100,000 and it goes a shorter distance. So if we look here, you'll see that the capacity is 4,000 millibuckets per tick. This one here is 1,000,000 millibuckets per tick. So it's a much larger capacity pipe and it goes much longer. So we shouldn't really have to worry about that. The only trouble, of course, with our current setup is that if we want to produce more power, we have to increase the fissile fuel burn rate, and increasing the fissile fuel burn rate increases the amount of polonium that we make, which kind of doesn't solve the problem of the polonium backing up, but it does solve the problem of it taking 28 hours for us to get 6,000 millibuckets of antimatter. Anyway, now that that is taken care of and we have our supercritical phase shifter up and running, the next thing that I would like to work on in today's stream is starting to work through the power mod a little bit, specifically through the different tiers of energizing rod, so that hopefully at some point fairly soon we can look at making a bunch of nitro crystals fairly easily. Because right now we are passively waiting for the antimatter. Again, we might look at increasing our power output in the future, but while we wait for the antimatter to finish so that we can get infinite of it and therefore make the final stars, the other things that we need to make the final stars are basically just final star shards and ultimate singularities. Dark matter has an EMC, Aeternalis blocks can be made from Aeternalis fuel, which has an EMC, and so we just need a lot of final star shards, and I believe about 36 ultimate singularities. Now, 36 ultimate singularities also kind of equates to 36 final stars, which means we need a ton of these final star shards. Again, there's 12 here, and so we do 36 multiplied by 12. We need 432 final star shards. The final star shards are made through this recipe sequence here. Basically, you take one nether star and you run it through these 7 deployers 20 times. You have to do this whole thing 20 times. And so you have to kind of imbue this nether star with 20 refined radiants, 20 nitro crystals, 20 precision mechanisms, and then 20 of each of the basic, regular, improved, and advanced mechanical essences. So the essences we're going to start to back up on slowly but surely. We do need 8,640 of each of them, basically of every item on this list here, if my calculations are correct for the final star shard there, which I think they are, because up here at the top, the creative vending upgrade requires 4 final stars, as well as 4 final power flowers Mark 16. Each final power flower requires 1 ultimate singularity, 3 final stars. Each final star also requires an ultimate singularity, so that's 4 ultimate singularities. And then every item here, apart from the chemical tank, requires another final star. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ultimate singularities per power flower, and then obviously it's 4 of them, so that's 32, plus 4 more here is 36. That's 36 ultimate singularities, but it's actually slightly less final stars. It's actually 4 less. So we only need 32 final stars, so it's a little bit less than 8,600, but still a very large amount, and we can still be shooting for about 8,000 of each of these items here. And of course, one of those items is nitro crystals. So the nitro crystals are made using the Energizing orb from power, which thankfully is super easy to make. If we go ahead and type Energizing orb into JI, it's made with 5 glass, 3 dielectric rods, horizontal, and 1 dielectric casing. The dielectric casing is made with iron, and then a mix of horizontal and vertical dielectric rods. The dielectric rods are made with iron nuggets and dielectric paste, and the dielectric paste is very easily made with coal, redstone, and clay, all of which we should have in abundance. So let's go ahead and make a few stacks of dielectric paste here, just to have ready to go. Again, clay is from EMC, redstone's from EMC, and the coal is also from EMC as well. So we have basically an infinite amount of all of those. Then let's go ahead and make, again, let's say a stack of the horizontal and maybe even a stack of the vertical dielectric rods. Fantastic. And then the Energizing orb does require that dielectric casing. I'll make maybe 16 of those for the time being, and we'll also go ahead and make the Energizing orb. Nice. Now, the way this works is you place the given items. In our case, we want to put in 1 nether star, 2 blocks of redstone, and a block of blazing crystal into the orb, and then you provide the orb with the amount of redstone shown. So once you pump 20 million FE into the orb, you will get 16 nitro crystal. The trouble is that unlike other machines in modded Minecraft, you can't just put a flux point down or just put down a universal cable. You have to specifically power these via these energizing rods. There are multiple tiers, going from the starter tier, which can input 100 FE per tick, all the way up to the nitro tier, which can pump in 200,000 redstone flux per tick. And what we need to do is we need to just work our way up the tiers here so that we have a high enough tier of energizing rods so that when we do have automated nether stars, we can start making these nitro crystals fairly quickly, so that it's not going to take us 100 million years to get 8,000 of these nitro crystals. So let's go ahead and place this down maybe over here for the time being. We'll put it down right about there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take some universal cables. Let me bookmark basically all of the energized rods and then universal cable. Let's make some more because I think we are completely out here, and I think we do have a little bit of spare infused alloy. We do indeed. Fantastic. The advanced universal cable here should be fine. 51,000 redstone flux per tick. There are, of course, some here that can go higher, specifically the nitro rod, but I don't think we're going to make the nitro rod today, simply because, again, we don't have any nether stars. And one thing we'll work on probably in an upcoming episode is this little setup down here of automating the production of wither skeleton skulls, and therefore automating the spawning and killing of the wither to get infinite nether stars. For now, though, what we'll do is we'll just place down a couple of universal cables like this, and we're going to place the energizing rods on top of the universal cables to allow us to transfer energy into the energizing orb. So the first tier of energizing rod is this one, the starter tier. Super easy. It requires, again, another dielectric casing, another dielectric rod, this time with a nether quartz and 2 basic capacitors of the tiny variety. Those are made by crafting down regular capacitors. So if we do something like this. We can craft down a basic capacitor into 2 tiny capacitors, and then from there we can get our first energized rod. You can make multiple of these, and essentially you just put them down like this onto either a flux plug or some kind of power cable. The mod power does also add its own power cable as well, if you're interested in that. And it needs to be fairly close to the energizing orb. I'm not entirely certain of the maximum distance away these can be. I think it's quite far. It might be like 5 blocks maybe, but please do let me know in the comments if you do know how far these can go. But usually I place them a couple blocks away and it works just fine. And so if we want to move up to the next tier, which is basic, we need to actually just craft. Again, we actually don't need to make the starter ones. That's my bad. Let me pick both of these up. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that yeah, the starter ones were required because you need them for crafting the next tier, but usually the way it works here, we'll upgrade both of those to basic. Usually you have to put these down because if we look now at the next tier here is hardened. And for hardened, we need hardened capacitors, and the hardened capacitors require energized steel. Energized steel is made in the energizing orb, and so we do have to have some energizing rods down so we can actually make this energizing steel. Thankfully, it is super easy to make. It is iron, we'll take a stack, and gold will also take a stack. Now, you do need to be careful here. We have to put exactly 1 iron and 1 gold in, and then when we do, we'll see that, boom, the power gets transferred from the energizing rods into the energizing orb, and we have energized steel. Very cool stuff. We can do that really as many times as we like. We'll go for 8 here because we have 2 energizing rods, and we'll see if we can't upgrade both of those to the hardened tier. We can do that, of course, by once again breaking both of these, and then let's have a look. We need to craft up 4 hardened capacitors. You get 2 at a time, which is fantastic. We do need a large capacitor, which you make with 2 smaller ones. That's also not going to be a problem. Let's get 2 of you, or 2 lots of you, I should say, for 4 in total, and then let's upgrade both of our basic energizing rods into hardened energizing rods. Nice. Again, these do need to go down. These can now move up to 1,000 FE per tick, so we're already moving a fair bit faster than we were just a second ago. The next tier up here is blazing. This, again, fairly similar recipe, but with a different capacitor. This time it's the blazing capacitor that requires blazing crystals, which, you guessed it, requires either blaze rods or blaze powder. We do have both. I'm going to go ahead and just take the blaze rods because it's easier, and you just place it in, and slowly but surely, it does the job. It takes a little longer, simply due to the fact that this requires 90,000 redstone flux, whereas the energized steel only required 10,000. So this is 9 times more power, whereas the hardened energizing rod can only move about 2.5 times as much power as the basic rod. So it is going to take a little longer, and that's kind of a running theme as we move up the chains here. We could, of course, if we wanted to make even more of these energizing rods, you can really put down a very large number of these, really as many as you can fit in the acceptable area around the energizing orb, and we probably will end up making quite a lot of energizing rods because, again, as I said before, we're going to need a ton of nitro crystals to complete the pack, so we're almost certainly going to end up with a big array of them. For now, though, as we move on through the tiers, let's see, can we make this blazing rod? For that, we need a blazing capacitor. Again, it requires another large one. That is fine. Once we have 2 large capacitors, we can upgrade those to 4 of the blazing capacitors, and then from there we should be able to upgrade our hardened energized rods to blazing. Nice. These can move 4,000 redstone flux per tick. Let's whack both of those down, and there are now 3 more tiers remaining, but 2 more that we're going to do today. We need the Niotic. This is made with Niotic crystals. This one is a little trickier because here you only get 1 Niotic crystal at a time, so we're actually going to need 16 of these Niotic crystals as opposed to 8 of them, and these are made by putting diamonds in the energizing rod with 300,000 redstone flux per tick. So let's see, can we get 16 of these? We can. Nice. Okay, so do we have what it takes? We might need to make some more capacitors here because I think we are a little low. That is fine. Let's clear that out, and then let's make some more large capacitors. Again, here we're going to need 4 of those so that we can make 4 of these. That should allow us, if we go ahead and pick both of these up, to upgrade our blazing energizing rods, ideally up to the Niotic energizing rods. It does. These can move 10,000 redstone flux per tick. And then the final tier that we're going to work with today is the spirited energizing rod. This requires the spirited capacitor. Again, you only get one of these at a time, so we do need 16 spirited crystals. These require 1 million redstone flux to be created. So again, it's one of those situations where the niotic energizing rod produces about double the amount of power of the blazing rod, but the next tier of crystal requires about triple the amount of power. Should be fine though. We should have a ton of emeralds lying around. We do indeed, and so it shouldn't really take us too long to get 16 of these spirited crystals. And again, not too long later, boom, we've got 16 spirited crystals. You can't put these in bulk, by the way. If you try and put in more than one, it just doesn't work. You can right-click to take them out again, and once you're back down to just the right amount, it will do the craft. Just a heads up there if you're going to try that. Let me replace that down. And yeah, this is going to get us the second to highest tier of energized rod. Again, we do need more of these capacitors. That is fine. Can I get... I guess I need 2 more of those, actually. Do we have what it takes? We do not. That is fine. Give me another 4 of the basics, then let's get 2 more of the big ones, and then let's craft up 4 of those. Fantastic. And that should be everything to craft up 2 of the spirited energizing rods that can do 40,000 redstone flux per tick. That is the second to last tier before the nitro, but again, nitro requires nether stars, and we've yet to set up the system for automating nether stars, so we don't have those just yet, but this does require 20 million redstone flux, so 20 times as much as the spirited crystal, and the spirited rod only does about 4 times as much transfer, so ideally we'd want even more of these to make this happen a fair bit faster. But at some point in the near future, we are going to look at automating the nitro crystals. It shouldn't be too difficult with the Pretty Pipes mod. It should be fairly easy for us to keep one of each of these items stocked inside of the energizing orb, and that's going to allow us to continually produce nitro crystals. We do need blocks of blazing crystal for that, so we are going to need, I think, a second energizing orb where we automate the production of those blazing crystals, and then obviously craft those and send them around for the nitro crystal. But I really don't think that that is going to be too difficult. I think it should be fairly easy for us to automate nitro crystals, and so long as we have enough EMC to keep the redstone going, enough blaze powder to keep the blaze crystals going, and a fast enough wither killing system to keep the nether stars going, we should be able to get the 8,000 plus nitro crystals that we need fairly easily. Next time though, I think what we might do is we might come back and we might also start to look at these ultimate singularities. These, thankfully, are not too difficult. I think this is going to be one of the easier parts of the setup. Each one of these singularities requires 1,000 of the given resource, so we need a diamond singularity. We need 1,000 diamonds to make that happen. Again, that's fine. We've got EMC for that. We need bronze, steel, invar, electrum, lapis, uranium, emerald, zinc, coal, nickel, lead, copper, iron, diamond, tin, silver, aluminum, redstone, and glowstone. So outside of the first 4, which are alloys, bronze, electrum, invar, and steel, outside of those, everything else we have like an EMC for, right? Not directly, but we have the ability to EMC the ores. So we're making almost all of the ores over here. And of course we have our redstone, our lapis, our coal, and our glowstone down here on the bottom level. And so again, so long as we have enough EMC, we should be able to make this happen. As I mentioned earlier, I think we need 36 of these. And so we basically need 36,000 of each resource listed, which I think should be fine. We of course don't have anywhere near that much right now. We've got about 500 maximum of each resource, but if we take out the storage downgrades, which I think we can probably now do, we are up at 300 million redstone flux. If we take those out, we are going to start to back up. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me put that back down. We are going to start to back up more on all of these resources, and of course we can look at increasing the speed of all of these machines like we've done with iron, with uranium, and with aluminum now to get them going just that little bit faster. We are going to have to set up some probably dedicated machines for the alloys like the electrum, like the invar, and like the copper, but that should also be fine. Like I said, the only problem we might run into is one of EMC if we need, 36,000 of every resource. But again, we could also look at speeding up basically the entirety of this lineup. We have already today looked at increasing the speed of the production of our electronic circuits They're not coming in as fast as I'd like, but they are still coming in fast enough to saturate these fluid encapsulators. So we could look at getting higher tier integral components, but we could also look, of course, at getting ourselves a watcher flowing time to allow us to start processing a lot of stuff a lot faster and really start to ramp up our EMC production. But those are all problems for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and ramp up today's episode of Mechanical Mastery there.